to Programming for Normal People. I'm Steve. This episode we're going to talk about primitive data types or types of information. They're really just types of variables that are the more foundational building blocks for programming. This really is kind of a conversation that's a prelude to when we start talking about objects, which will be in the next video. To understand objects, you first really need to understand these. The types of things, we have integers, which are whole numbers. They can be negative, can be positive, can be zero, just a whole number. Or floats, which is a floating point number, which is something with a decimal point, and the decimal point floats around. That's why they're called a floating point number. We use these a lot to kind of represent where something might be on a screen, because it's not necessarily between 0.2 or 3, it's somewhere in the middle. So we use floating point, and if you're working with money, you might use floats, things like that. We also have a double, which is a float, but it is double the size. So it can be more precise for numbers, or it can hold bigger numbers. We also have Booleans, and that's kind of a weird name. You may not have heard it before, but it's really just true or false. In memory, they're stored as a 1 or a 0, but it just represents a true or a false. And we'll use them a lot when we start getting into if statements. But you might see them if you're looking at a program that's tracking student information for like a school. You might have a Boolean variable that just represents whether or not that student can graduate. So it's a true or false thing. And the last type we'll talk about today is a char, which is just a single character. We use chars to build them together to make a string of letters, which is like a whole word or a sentence or a paragraph. So a char is just a single, the letter A. It can be uppercase, it can be lowercase, it can be punctuation, and in modern programming languages, it can even be an emoji. But it's just that one single character. And that pretty well covers everything with primitive data types. Like I said, it's just a really short topic, but it's essential to have this before we start talking about objects. Feel free to comment below if you have any questions.